Alright, so what's going on, guys? Joker 2019. Joaquin Phoenix plays the Joker, otherwise known as Arthur Fleck. And wow, what a mess! It's a mess of both good, great, bad, and horrible. Let's get into the good. I love the components of Arthur Fleck's story when they show him to be this socially inept, socially isolated person who's very anxious, has this mental condition in which he cannot control his laughter, and feels very maligned by society. He's a very misanthropic character who doesn't feel like he fits in whatsoever. This is highlighted by the fact that when he's at a comedy show, he tends to laugh out of key with the audience. So when the comedian gives the punchline, everyone starts to laugh and he sort of sits there staring dumbfounded, but afterwards he'll laugh in the middle of like the setup. So he feels like he's out of tune with society and he doesn't really fit in very well. And this works really well with the paradigm that they sort of set up with the idea of how wealth inequality within the city and within the world has set up a situation where the socially disenfranchised and the economically disenfranchised don't seem to really fit in with the world and feel very anxious and very out of place and stepped on in a way. So to sort of return the favor, the Joker goes on a talk show that Arthur Fleck, the Joker, absolutely loves and watches all the time with his mother and even fantasizes about in the earlier parts of the movie, and kind of hopes that the guy on the show will turn out to be a father figure to him. Now, because he sort of set him up to be his father figure, when he finds out that he actually is bringing him on the show to sort of make fun of him to get ratings, another sort of nod at the fact that, you know, the upper class and the social elite are not really connected to the real world and to real people, and they're really just all out to make a buck. And they're really dehumanizing these people just so that they can sort of prop themselves up economically and socially. And this is a point in the movie where the Joker has just had enough and he fully unleashes on the audience and on society. And this really stimulates the chaos within the city, within Gotham City. And now I love all those parts, and Joaquin Phoenix does an excellent job acting and he really pulls it off well, especially with the smoking and the perpetual laughter and the shaking and the jittering and the awkwardness. He does a really good job of capturing this sort of ailment in today's culture. Now, what I don't like about the movie is that it's taking this character and it's trying so hard to make it a character study and to be more grand than it really is. I mean, let's be honest here. In terms of a Hollywood character study, this is probably way above the bar. It's fantastic. Now, in terms of a character study, in comparison to other great works that have come through the generations, it's probably slightly above average. And really, because it aims so high and because it's so try-hard, it really comes off as artificial at certain moments. Now, one of the worst parts of the movie, I have to say, is the part when Joker is in the police vehicle and he gets sideswiped by a ambulance, and the people in the ambulance, they stole the ambulance and they're wearing Joker masks. They were inspired by his actions and they really want to make a statement about society at large. So they take him out because he's the propagator of the chaos that's going on in the city, and they place him on the hood of the car and they almost do it in a pose that's Christ-like. They sort of make him out to be a martyr. And it's very artificial, it's out of place and try hard and more grand than it really needs to be. And I feel like at the end of the day, that's the movie's biggest failing, is that they're trying to make the Joker look heroic in a way. It's not a hero movie per se, but they try to paint the Joker in a light that what he is doing, even though he's not doing it for political or economic reasons, what he is doing is just an okay because society has mistreated him. And because he's very narcissistic, he feels like he can take out his rage on society because he deserves it after years of abuse and emotional anguish. And I feel like that was the wrong message. Look, the Joker should be an understandable character. We should be able to empathize with him. But we shouldn't praise his actions. And they even try to make his murders, like the murder in the subway, look as though it was done in a way that was self-defense. It wasn't malicious or anything like that. Even though the last guy that he killed, he could have let get away anyway. I mean, he's already gonna get in trouble with the authorities regardless. It's not like the guy would have recognized his face with all the clown makeup. He didn't have to do that. But the way they kind of paint it throughout the story is that what he is doing is okay, and he's doing it as a means because he's been maligned by society for years, and this is just his sort of way of sort of equaling the playing field. It's not his fault that they've taken funding away from his social welfare program, and we understand these issues, but the way in which it's handled is almost sort of encouraging violence and protest when there are actually better ways to sort of ameliorate those problems within the world. They're not easy. They're not going to be fixed in a day or a week or a month or even a year. You know, they take decades and generations. It almost sort of gives the green light to people who may think that those certain types of actions like protest and riots actually do good for the world, when in most cases they don't really do good for anyone and sort of muddle the waters. So in terms of the bad, I feel like the messaging was wrong. I feel like they tried to deify the Joker, especially at the end of the movie with the Christ pose. And I feel like a lot of the antics towards the end of the movie got a little too zany and wacky for my taste. The fact that he killed, or he presumably killed, the girl that was interviewing him at the end of the movie because his shoes were all red, we would assume that he probably used a blunt instrument, killed her, and it got on his shoes. That's why he was walking down the hall. And then he just sort of starts dancing, and then he's getting chased by an orderly. Like, that just felt very out of place to me. Now, there were several moments in this film where he was imagining things and they were all part of his psychosis. So it could have been something that maybe was part of his psychosis once again and didn't really actually occur in real life, similar to the situation in which he imagined himself kissing the girl next door and presumably having sex. So that's kind of where I'm at, guys. I feel like there was a lot of potential in this movie, and I really did want to love it. I felt like going into it, it had all the right elements. They just weren't executed in a way that I felt was right. And one more gripe that I had, when he finally put on the Joker apparel and he was getting in the elevator and going down the stairs, you know the scene that they played in all the commercials leading up to the movie? They had the worst music selection. It was one of those like football songs that they play right before a big game. It was like, this does not fit well with the theme of the movie. So it was a lot of good elements, but they just weren't executed well. And it had a lot of inspiration from the Robert De Niro movie and the Martin Scorsese film Taxi. It felt very similar in that regard, especially with how, in terms of how it was a character study and the main character slowly is going insane and then eventually does some drastic action that changes their life forever. So Unfortunately, you know, it could have been a great film. It could have been a very good film, but I just don't think it measures up at the end of the day. I feel like there were too many missed opportunities, and it took a lot of the good elements, and it didn't really homogenize well with the weird deification of the Joker himself and trying to make him out to be sort of a hero in a way. So that's all I really got to say. I feel like it was a miss. If I had to give it a grade, I'd say C- to D+. And yeah, unfortunately, it's not a masterpiece like all the critics are saying. Well, what are you gonna do? Catch you on the flip side.